Let's talk throughput, specifically getting every single ounce of throughput out of your 10DLC application to person messaging campaigns. Hi, my name is Will Craig. I'm a co-founder of a company called Signal House. We specialize in connectivity for CRM systems, but we can power any system that is sending application to person messaging. And in today's video, we're going to be showing you how you can get all of the throughput that you need to maximize the ROI you're getting for your business messaging, how frequently you should get additional throughput or request additional throughput, and what that process looks like. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So before we get too far ahead, I do want to quickly define 10DLC and A2P. So that's 10-digit long code application to person messaging. And it's a mouthful, I'll admit that, but it's pretty simple to understand when we break it down. 10-digit long code just refers to 10-digit phone numbers. These are the ones that we're all familiar with, that we use every single day to communicate with each other, where the first 3 digits correspond to an area code within the United States. And as far as A2P stands, that is application to person. This just means that it is sending a message from a software system to a person's handset. Now, for a business to be able to send messages from an application to a person's handset, they have to go through a process called 10DLC A2P registration. This includes submitting their brand information, which is just their business information, and registering a specific messaging use case, specifically marketing, customer support, account notifications, delivery notifications. It goes down a long line of a list of things. But what is important for this conversation is that a standard campaign, so we talk a lot on this channel about low volume mix campaigns. Check out our video about low volume mix campaigns and why it's my favorite campaign. Those campaigns, unfortunately, cannot go through this additional vetting process. You would have to register a standard campaign if you want more throughput than what the low volume mix throughput enables you to have. And we'll dig into throughput limits specifically here in a little bit. Now, if you have a standard campaign, you are able to go through this standard vetting process, or additional vetting, as I call it. Now, let's peel back the curtain a little bit and talk about this process and why there is a process to go through to unlock more throughput. And it's really just a numbers game and a compliance game that the carriers and the campaign registry, or TCR, is doing. And the campaign registry, by the way, is just a database. It's a company, but it is effectively a database of your brands and your campaigns. And they also facilitate connections to the parties that actually review the campaigns themselves. So when it comes to standard vetting and additional vetting, what are they actually looking at? And so what happens is there's a third-party organization, there's Aegis Mobile, and there's WMC Global. These are the 2 different providers that actually review your company information to give you additional throughput. Now, for the 10DLC registration process, the campaign review is really the most stringent review. They're looking at your website, your use case, all of these different things to determine whether or not you should be allowed to send 10-digit messaging traffic in general. But they're not scrutinizing your company in and of itself. That is what happens during the standard vetting process. So they're not going to be looking at your website. They're not going to be looking at your campaign use case and how you submitted it. They're going to be specifically looking into your company details. The 2 most important things are how old your company is and how many people it employs. So how many W-2 employees are associated with that in the IRS database. Now, there are going to be other things as well, like history of litigation and any Better Business Bureau complaints, things of that nature, any FCC actions that have happened against you. Those will obviously lead to you not getting additional throughput or limiting the throughput that you get. Essentially, like I mentioned before, it's a numbers and a compliance game. So essentially what the carriers are saying is that, yes, the 10DLC process is a stringent campaign review. Don't get me wrong. I know that a lot of people are struggling with getting their campaigns reviewed, but in the grand scheme of things, it is a simpler review process than is for toll-free or for short code, and substantially easier than RCS, for example, which are just other messaging channels. When you are applying for additional vetting, however, you do go through a little bit stricter review. And again, they're looking at your specific company information. And this is why I always tell people, if you are growing fairly quickly, if you're a new company and you're growing fairly quickly, I would do this test every 6 to 12 months because again, they're looking at how old your company is and how many employees. So if your company will inherently get older over time, but if you're also adding additional employees, that is going to enable you to get a higher trust score or just score associated with your company. And those scores unlock additional throughput. And they do this in specific scoring bands. And so without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. And we're actually going to walk through an article on the Signal House website about 10DLC campaigns and really everything you need to learn about them. But it has the specific bands in it. And I want to walk through and talk about that so that it just makes a little bit more sense. And so sharing my screen now, we can see that this article, everything you need to know about 10DLC campaigns, we have the campaign types and their throughput. So again, I mentioned that low volume mixed campaigns are not able to go through this additional vetting or standard vetting process. They are limited to 2,000 SMS messages per day with T-Mobile, 75 per minute with AT&T on the SMS channel, and 50 per minute on the MMS channel for AT&T, and a total limit of 6,000 segments per day, which is essentially just 160 character messages. If you do have a standard campaign in any of these use cases, so customer care, marketing, mixed use, but a standard mixed use campaign, you are able to increase your throughput, and you're able to increase your throughput pretty dramatically depending on the score. So what's important is that this happens in bands of 25. So of a score of 1 to 24, nothing is going to change. You're going to have the exact same limits as you would always have. Now, if you get a score between 25 and 49, the first thing that's going to change is T-Mobile. It's going to go from 2,000 segments a day to 10,000 segments a day. Your AT&T is not going to change, but your AT&T on a standard campaign is going to be higher than it is on a low volume. So on a standard campaign, you're going to have 240 SMS segments per minute and 150 MMS segments per minute on the AT&T channel. Now, again, 25 to 49, you're going to see this increase to 10,000. 50 to 74 is really where you're going to see quite a bit of substantial changes. So you're going from 10K to 40, or if you're doing it for the first time and you get a score between 50 and 74, you would go from 2,000 to 40,000, and you're basically 10xing your traffic for AT&T. So you're going from 240 to 2,400 and 150 to 1,200. So not quite 10xing for MMS, but it's going to substantially increase how many messages you can send per day to T-Mobile and per minute for AT&T. The highest band that you're going to be able to get through just additional vetting and standard vetting alone is this one right here. We're able to send 200,000 messages to T-Mobile per day, 4,500 per minute SMS for AT&T, and 2,400 per minute MMS for AT&T. So this is going to obviously dramatically increase the amount of traffic that you are able to send. And all you need to do this process is in your account. So if you're a Signal House customer, you can do this directly within your Signal House portal. If you are a campaign service provider or a CSP, you would know if you are. This just means that you have a login to the campaign registry or TCR. You're able to do that directly within that portal. If you are a customer of another messaging provider, you should be able to do this, but I would reach out to them to ask them specifics on how. Now, one final point to go over as it relates to all of this information is that there is a cost associated. It is a $40 one-time charge to do standard vetting, and that is to obtain your score. Now, if you need to appeal that score, there also is a process for that as well. When you get that score back, they're going to tell you why you got the score that you did. If you got a score below 25, there's certainly going to be an issue that they pointed out. Maybe they couldn't find your address, it wasn't properly matched up, or whatever the case may be. They were not able to properly identify you, so they gave you a lower score for a risk basis. You are able to appeal that. You can provide your W-9 or your SS-4 or whatever legal documents that you have to make sure that they have the right information. That should bump your score up a little bit. But if you are a new company, you should not expect to have a score that is super high because, again, age of the company, number of employees are going to be the two biggest things that they are looking for. So in general, I hope this was super helpful. This is a great way for you to increase your throughput if you are on a standard campaign. If you're on a low volume campaign, you can just create a standard campaign, go through the approval process, and then you can apply for standard vetting and increase the amount of segments you're able to send from both AT&T and T-Mobile on that channel. Now, one question you may be asking about is Verizon. Verizon does not publish their throughput numbers, so we don't know them. And that's why I can't give you concrete estimates or numbers around Verizon. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, give it a thumbs up. Share this with someone who could benefit from it as well. Subscribe to our channel. We upload videos 5 days a week within the messaging ecosystem, helping you properly navigate it so that your business is able to send messages seamlessly. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much.